These two parables, this is what I'm going to talk to you about today, inshallah, is ayah number 125 of Surah Al-An'am. And the last time I spoke to you was about 122, so they're pretty close to each other. There, Allah talked about, just as a quick reminder, as for the one who was dead and we gave them life, meaning someone who was spiritually dead, they hadn't realized their faith, and then Allah brought them to guidance. And that was compared to someone who remains in darknesses. One observation about that that's important, I think, is when someone is in misguidance, and then Allah does give them guidance, and they do leave the dark or death lifestyle, and they come towards Allah, they have an appreciation for where Allah brought them. They can remember the times when they were in darkness, and now they can see what Allah has given them. So they have a value for what Allah has given them. If you compare this to the second group, the contrary group that was mentioned, Allah said the one who is in darknesses and, or في الظلمات, in shades of darkness, ليس بخارج منها, he's not going to come out of them. They never saw any guidance anyway. Like they don't even know what they're missing, right? So they see no value in coming to guidance because it's like it's not something they've ever experienced. So there's actually a contrast being drawn between someone who can appreciate where they were to where they are now, to someone who can't appreciate guidance because it's just not something they have any experience with. They don't care for it because it's never been a part of their life. So this is a matter of appreciation also. Today we're taking the next step. What Allah is giving us is the next step in that imagery of guidance and misguidance. So the previous one was about the journey towards Islam itself. But now it's almost as if now that somebody has come towards Islam or they've realized it, how do they stay guided? So there's arriving at guidance and then there's kind of remaining guided. And so this parable is about remaining guided. The previous one was about arriving to guidance. So Allah says, فَمَنْ يُرِدِ اللَّهُ أَنْ يَهْدِيَهُ, and I'll translate it accordingly. And whoever Allah might intend then, that Allah would guide them or continue to guide them. I'll translate it like that. Okay? That Allah would continue to guide a person. Allah says, يَشْرَحْ صَدْرَهُ لِلْإِسْلَامِ. Allah would then, a rough translation will be, expand their chest for Islam. I'll explain what that means in a moment, but for now we'll go with rough translation. وَمَنْ يُرِدْ أَنْ يُضِلَّهُ, and whoever He might intend, this is going to be a bad translation, and we're going to fix it in the course of our discussion. And whoever He might intend to misguide, because it sounds wrong, Allah wanting to misguide someone. And we're going to have to work on that, figure out what that means, right? يَجْعَلْ صَدْرَهُ ضَيِّقًا حَرَجًا. Allah makes their chest, this person's chest, constricted, tight. ضَيِّقًا حَرَجًا, extremely tight, extremely constricted. So there's two words used, one bad and then the other one worse, right next to each other. كَأَنَّمَا يَصَّعَّدُ فِي السَّمَاءِ, as if this person is climbing up towards the sky or into the sky. كَذَلِكَ يَجْعَلُ اللَّهُ الرِّجْسَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. That is how Allah places filth on those who don't believe. So this seems like a pretty obscure translation, but we're going to try to take this bit by bit by bit. The first portion of this is Allah intends to guide. Allah has mentioned in other places in the Quran what Allah intends and what Allah wants and what Allah doesn't want. And He has mentioned on multiple occasions that this guidance, this Quran, is guidance for everybody. For example, in the ayat of Al-Baqarah, we're talking about Ramadan. He described the Quran. He said, "Hudan lin-nas." It's a guidance for all human beings, right? So it's not like Allah wants some people to be misguided or some people should go to hell and other people should be guided, and that's what Allah wants. If Allah wanted, this message to just be for some people, He wouldn't call it Hudan lin-nas, guidance for all people. So let's keep things super simple without making them sound philosophical or complicated. You have a teacher in a classroom. He's got 20 students, right? This teacher has 20 students. The teacher wants all of these kids to succeed. He wants to see all of them pass. He's going to provide them all the same lecture, give them the same homework, give them the same preparation for the test, all of it. But then he says in the end, he says, well, the only ones that are going to pass are going to be the ones that complete their homework assignments. He's basically, and you're not going to be able to do well on the test if you haven't been doing your homework. It's just not going to happen, right? He's not saying he wants some people to fail. He's just saying, look, I want all of you to pass, but all of you have to meet the requirements in order to be able to pass. Whether you choose, if you're one of those 20 and you choose to do the assignment or not do the assignment, that's not the teacher's fault, that's your fault. You didn't do your part. He opened it up for you. He provided the education, he provided the examples, he provided the review, he was there to answer your questions, etc., etc. Similar concept of when Allah talks about guidance. We sometimes make it as if Allah forced guidance on some people and forced misguidance on other people. It's not that simple. And that's actually that can lead to a lot of misconception also of what Allah means by guidance and misguidance in His book. But anyway, Allah does mention that whoever Allah intends to keep on guidance. Where does that come from? This is a principle in the Quran that everybody should understand. And that principle is نُوَلِّهِ مَا تَوَلَّى. Allah says it Himself. We turn a person in the direction they turned themselves. Allah says, in a good direction, Allah says, وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا. Those who make struggle to come towards us in our path, we keep opening up our pathways and keep guiding them to our pathways. Meaning when you show Allah initiative, Allah gives you extra benefits. When you turn towards Allah seeking guidance, Allah opens doors for you to find guidance. That's the formula with Allah. When Allah sees any of His slaves in existence turn towards Him looking for guidance, there is no way someone turns to Allah for guidance and Allah does not give it to them. That's Allah's rule. That's Allah's rule. And the more you come to Him, the more He comes to you. In the famous hadith paraphrasing of the Prophet ﷺ, you walk to Him, He runs to you. Right? So this is the idea that Allah will respond in kind and even much more to your initiative. You have to show the step, and then Allah responds, and Allah responds, right? The same is true of the opposite end. But this one's interesting. I want to remind you of an example in the Quran that is not here, but it's related to this, the misguidance side. Even though we're still on the opening guidance phrase, I want to tie that in together now. The word abrama in Arabic, the verb ibram, abrama yubrimu, ibraman, is used for tying up beams of construction. So back in the ancient world, nowadays when you have columns or different kinds of planks of wood or steel or whatever, we weld things together, we nail them together, we drill them together, etc. But back in the day, they used to have these logs of wood, and the way they would hold them together is they would bind them together. They would rope them together, right? Now, obviously, you're familiar with the concept of tying a rope or tying a knot, like you're tying your shoes is also tying a knot. But you can imagine that the rope that you use to tie columns together, that's a pretty serious kind of knot. You tie it in a way that you're intending that it never gets undone because the entire construction depends on it, right? That kind of a knot where you double up the rope, you coil the rope, you twist it multiple times on one angle, the other angle, wrap it up, then again, then again, then again, then again. That kind of reinforced tying was called ibram. Now keep that image in mind. Allah uses that image to describe a phrase about the kuffar, a sentiment of the kuffar in Mecca. He says, Am abramu amran fa inna mubrimun. So I'll translate that now. Have they made up their minds? And if so, we have made up our mind too. But what the literal language is, have they tied their rope? That's the literal question. Have they tied their rope? And if so, we've tied ours too. What is Allah saying? These people have made such a strong commitment to remain kafir. It's the same as the one who ties the rope and it ties it in a way that's designed to never be undone. The commitment to tying it did not come from Allah. The commitment to tying themselves, binding themselves to kufr came from them. And as a result of that, Allah says, fine, I'll let you keep it. Fine, I will tie it too. You want to seal the deal? I'll seal the deal also. It's the same as when I want to come to Allah for guidance, Allah will guide. When I want to show, any human being wants to show Allah a commitment to misguidance, Allah says, fine. Another way this phrasing is used in the Quran is نُوَلِّهِ مَا تَوَلَّى. We turn this person in the direction they turned themselves. You yourself turned in that direction, Allah says, fine, have it your way. This is also another way to think about this. This is a spiritual reality. You can also think of it in ways of fitrah. Allah has given us in this fitrah, it's a really remarkable thing that things that happen in nature happen in the spiritual world too. So many of the young guys here, for example, you work out. The more you exercise a muscle and you keep giving it proper nutrition, the stronger that muscle gets, right? The more you're using it, the stronger it's getting. It's just the way it's designed. The opposite, if you covered one of your eyes, this is a muscle, you covered it, and you didn't open it for a year, 2 years, you didn't open it. What's going to happen when you open it? You're going to be blind. You're not going to be able to see. It's going to lose its ability. If you lie down in a bed and didn't get up for a year, 2 years, then you're going to have muscle atrophy. You're not going to be able to use your legs. If Allah has given you an ability and you don't use it, then you will, by nature, lose it. Lose it. The same is true of guidance. If Allah has given you an opportunity, given me an opportunity to accept Allah's guidance, and I reject it, and I reject it, and I reject it, and I reject it, eventually Allah will not give me unlimited ability to even make that choice. My ability to accept guidance will die. It'll be atrophy, spiritual atrophy. It'll be dead, right? So that's what's going to happen. Now, with that in mind, on the first end, on the guidance side, whoever Allah intends to continue to keep on the path of guidance or to guide them, He says, يَشْرَحْ صَدْرَهُ. I translated this as He expands their chest. The word sharh in Arabic actually means a slice or a cut of lean meat. When you slice a wide cut of meat and you put it on the grill, that's actually called a sharh, or shariha also, qit'atul lahm, right? And the idea of sharh then became something that's wide open or easily open, okay? And the word is then used in the figurative sense for expansion. Like many of you know the surah famously, Alam nashrah laka sadrak, right? So Allah says He expands their chest. Now what does it mean to expand or open up the chest? Lean open the chest. This is the idea of someone finding comfort in something. Actually, the figure of speech in Arabic, diqul sadr and sharhul sadr, is, you're making a decision and you feel calm about it. Then you have sharhul sadr or inshirahul sadr, and you're making a decision and it's bothering you. It's not sitting well with you. That's diqul sadr, actually. Allah is saying, when Allah intends to guide someone, an additional benefit He gives them is that Allah will put something in their chest, extra something in their chest from Allah, that they will feel calm, they will feel relaxed, they will feel like they can breathe. Like the idea of expanding the chest is you're breathing in fresh air. If you're in a room that has smoke in it, if you have an area that has a lot of smog or it's stuffy or something, you can't breathe properly, your nose gets stuffed, allergies happen, all this stuff. But you go somewhere and you can breathe the fresh air, like you go in like at a beach or something like that, and you can breathe the fresh air. The chest expands. And that's the imagery Allah is using to describe what Allah does to a person who Allah intends to guide. They feel a certain way about the religion. But Allah didn't just talk about this with Iman. He said, يَشْرَحْ صَدْرَهُ لِلْإِسْلَامِ, which is really important here. Islam, as opposed to Iman is what you believe on the inside, what you've accepted as the truth. Islam is your surrender to the demands Allah makes. So Allah says, pray, you pray, that's Islam. Allah says, stay away from this haram, you stay away from it, that's Islam. Islam is actual practical surrender. So Iman is on the inside, Islam is on the outside. You can think of it like that. Iman is on the inside, Islam is on the outside. Now here, the reason this is important in this case is that it's easy to accept an idea theoretically, but it's a lot harder to act on the idea even if you agree with it. Some people might agree, oh, this is an injustice, or this politician is doing something bad, or blah blah blah, or this is this is wrong. You could watch a video and agree with it. You agreed with it, but then are you going to become an activist for that cause and go out there and become a soldier in the movement or something? That's the transition from agreeing with something to acting on something is a big journey. And it takes a lot for someone to not just agree with something, but actually do something about it, right? What Allah is saying here is when truly Allah intends to guide someone, they don't just agree with the teachings of Islam in theory. Allah makes their chest comfortable with obeying Allah. The actual acting on the mandate of Allah is something they find comfort in, The question, let's keep things as simple as possible again. You have, for example, someone said, why do you have to pray 5 times? It's a lot. And can you have to pray like that early? Can you just kind of delay it until later and just combine them? Or, there should be some kind of a discount program. The idea of, I know it's a lot to ask, is someone whose chest has not yet been expanded for Islam. When the chest is expanded for Islam, then it's not, oh my God, it's Fajr again. It's, oh my God, it's Fajr. You're excited because your chest opens up for this act of surrender. You feel the joy of being able to pray. You feel the joy of it. And there's a deep sadness if you overslept. There's not just a shame and a regret or, oh well. No. There's actually, you missed out on a joy. You missed out on the expansion of a chest. You missed out on something that feels deeply good inside. And there's a sense of loss. That's the gift Allah gives to those He intends to guide. يَشْرَحْ صَدْرَهُ لِلْإِسْلَامِ. And then on the flip side, وَمَنْ يُرِدْ أَنْ يُضِلَّهُ. And whoever He intends to misguide. Now again, let me fix that translation now. Whoever He intends to leave in misguidance is probably the sense I would agree with most here. The previous parable we saw, مثله كمثل من في الظلمات كمن مثله في الظلمات ليس بخارج منها. The example of the one who is in shades of darkness himself won't come out of them on their own. They made their mind up. Remember the Abramu Amran thing, the tying rope thing? Well, if they made up their mind, they don't want to come out of the darkness. That's the person that Allah intends to keep the way they want to stay. Allah will not go out of the way and, divine intervention, pull them out of darkness when they don't want to come out. Allah says, Allahu waliyul ladhina amanu, yukhrijuhum min adh-dhulumati ila an-nur. Allah is the protective friend of those who believe. He pulls them out of darknesses into light. So the idea of getting someone out of the darkness towards the light is something Allah does. But then there are some people who like being in the dark. And Allah says, fine, this rope is not for you. You don't want it? It's not for you. That's the simple rule of Allah. What does Allah do with people like that though? There's an additional something that comes from Allah. It's almost like a punishment, you could say, that comes from Allah. That this person decided to hate Islam. Allah says, okay, I'll give you an allergic reaction to Islam too. Here's their allergic reaction. يَجْعَلْ صَدْرَهُ ضَيِّقًا. He makes their chest, this person's chest becomes tight. When they hear about Allah, can we change the subject? When they see somebody praying, something bothers them. Why do these people have to pray in front of everyone? Can't they go find somewhere else to pray? I hate these people with their hijabs and their, God, there's a discomfort in them when they see anything to do with Islam. Allah makes them feel something terrible inside. This is not just even about a non-Muslim. You might think, oh, this is talking about the people that stare at me on the plane when you walk in. They see the guy with the beard and يَجْعَلْ صَدْرَهُ ضَيِّقًا حَرَجًا. because they're about to yasa'adu fi sama, right? No, but this is even referring, I would argue, because Allah says, Man yuridillah, whoever Allah intends to give guidance to, whoever Allah intends to keep in the darkness, they want to keep it. Look, guidance and misguidance isn't about Islam and kufr. You could be in Islam and still be in misguidance. You could be Muslim on the outside, but not really be connected to Allah's guidance on the inside. And it could be that you're Muslim and you feel discomfort. It bothers you. يَجْعَلْ صَدْرَهُ ضَيِّقًا. It makes their chest tight, restricted, like you can't breathe. This is the image of hyperventilation. You guys familiar with the term? Right? You're running out of breath. Isn't this the opposite of when your chest is expanding? There's open breathing, and then there's hyperventilation. And then he uses the word harajan on top of that. Haraj is actually used for higher areas where there are trees that are so close to each other in a hill that the shepherd that wants to graze his animals, he can't take his animals there because the trees are too tightly close to each other that the animals can't get through in between. Right? That's actually the word haraj. So it's an extreme form of tightness that even animals can't squeeze through. So Allah took the word dayiq and added the word haraj as if to say this person feels discomfort, and that discomfort gets significantly worse. It doesn't get better, it gets worse. Their anxiety gets worse. And their hyperventilation, they're running more and more and more out of breath. Now, let's take a quick step back and understand something remarkable about this phrasing. The idea of hyperventilation is when you get really tired, right? And if you're climbing or if you're on a treadmill on an incline or something, and eventually it starts catching up with you and you start breathing heavy, and if you keep pushing harder and harder, then you're just gonna start panting and panting and panting. By the way, heavy breathing and difficult breathing is actually one of the common images in the Quran. Right? Allah uses the imagery of breathing quite a bit in the Quran. Like even وَالصُّبْحِ إِذَا تَنَفَّسْ is also the imagery of breathing in the Quran. But anyway, so why is this important? Because this is towards the end of the phase of Makkah. Hijrah is around the corner. Even though Quraysh know this Islam thing, we tried to get rid of it by calling the man insane. We tried to get rid of it by calling him a liar. We tried to get rid of it by calling him a poet. None of those tactics worked. We tried to get rid of it by beating up some of his followers, by torturing him, by humiliating him, by boycotting him. None of that worked. We need to do something. This is getting the anxieties building up. And the people who are following this religion, by the way, as the years went by in Makkah, Islam was getting harder and harder to follow because you were being beat up and tortured and the aggression was increasing. And yet Allah is saying, as difficult as things were getting, the people who are following Islam, Allah was giving their hearts, their chests a calm. They're the ones getting beat up and their chests are calm. And the Quraysh are trying to destroy Islam. They're the ones in power. They're the ones that are ripping people in half. They're the ones that are putting boulders on Bilal's chest. They're the ones that are, making Khabbab bin Arat lie on coal, burning coal, and then stand on him. They're the ones doing that, but they're the ones hyperventilating. It's not going away. Come on, it keeps getting worse. What? Umar? He became Muslim? Hamza? What are we gonna do? And there's an escalation happening with them. You would think, because they're in a position of power, they should be the ones breathing easy, and we should be the ones hyperventilating. It's not like that. يَجْعَلْ صَدْرَهُ ضَيِّقًا حَرَجًا. Then Allah says, كَأَنَّمَا يَصَّعَّدُ فِي السَّمَاءِ. What an apt image. Jawad pointed out very beautifully today when we were discussing. As if he is climbing up into the sky. The word sa'ad is used very few times in the Quran. إِذْ تُصْعِدُونَ وَلَا تَلْوُونَ عَلَىٰ أَحَدٍ. In the Battle of Uhud, when Rasulullah ﷺ and the Sahaba were climbing back up the mountain to escape the enemy because they had come back around. Right, that's what Is'ad was used then. This is yassa'adu, which is actually the mudgham form of yatasa'adu. Yatasa'adu became yassa'adu, which is an Arabic way of creating a friction, a tension in the word. So as if someone is climbing up into the sky. The word sky is not used as in they're climbing in thin air. Sama is used for mountains or very high places too. So it's the image of someone climbing up a mountain. And the more they're climbing, the air is getting thinner. And it's getting more and more dangerous. And they keep getting more and more exhausted. And the disbeliever, the one who wants, Allah intends misguidance for them, they keep going up towards the sky, running out of air, for example, firstly out of exhaustion, which is already, the chest is becoming tight. But on top of that, the air is getting thinner too. So it's dayiqan and it's harajan. There's two dimensions, right? كَأَنَّمَا يَصَّعَّدُ فِي السَّمَاءِ, as if he's climbing up into the sky, into the heights, like endless. He doesn't even know when it's going to end. This is so remarkable because if you notice, especially yesterday, I told you in this surah they said, how come there's no angel that comes down? How come no book comes down? How come no miracle comes down from the sky? And Allah says, and these people want something from the sky so bad. Their anxiety is like someone trying to climb up into the sky. Right? And they're running out of air as they do it. كَأَنَّمَا يَصَّعَّدُ فِي السَّمَاءِ. And so this is the remarkable imagery of someone who thinks that they're going towards freedom. Getting away from Islam, if you talk to people that don't want to follow Islam, even if you're not having a condescending conversation, the idea is that Islam is very restricting. This is haram, that's haram, can't do this, can't do that, wake up at this time, pray this, eat this, earn this, don't earn this, don't have this kind of bank account, don't do this kind of transaction, don't have this kind of relationship. There's a restriction on the kinds of relationships you can have, restriction on the kind of food you can have, restriction on the kind of money you can make, the kind of money you can spend. There are restrictions. And they're like, why do I have to follow these restrictions? I could be free. And you know what better image of freedom than the open sky, right? And Allah turns that image on its head. It's a counterintuitive, rendition of the image. Why? You would think the sky will give you freedom. And this person's climbing up into the sky, and what is it giving them? Lack of oxygen. This is what it's giving them. You want that freedom? Go for it. كَأَنَّمَا يَصَّعَّدُ فِي السَّمَاءِ. And look at the one who obeyed Allah in the beginning, who surrendered before Allah. What did Allah describe? They're free to breathe. They're free to expand, inhale all the way into their chest and exhale comfortably. SubhanAllah. What a beautiful contrast made. You would think the person who thinks they're running after freedom is running after their own suffocation. They're suffocating themselves. And the person who's running to surrender themselves to Allah is truly enjoying a breath of fresh air. They're truly enjoying freedom. This is Allah reverse engineering our concept of freedom and liberty. It's really powerful. I talked about this many years ago. I'll share it with you because I think it's relevant. When I went to 8th grade in Pakistan, because my dad was stationed in Pakistan briefly, so 8th grade was in Pakistan. And before that, we were in Saudi. So in Saudi, we were also in Pakistani school. And Pakistani school is like an all-boys school, and you have the uniform, right? Everybody's wearing the same exact clothes, so you can't really say, oh, this guy's white shirt. Everybody's wearing a white shirt, So the best you could have is your shoes are shinier than somebody else's. That's pretty much all you got, right? So because human beings always have some kind of class structure, even in the school, in the classroom, the best thing you could have to demonstrate your superiority was the pencil case. If you had a superior pencil case, and if you had an eraser, now this guy's made it, So, come to America. When we come to America, I know 9th grade, signed up for, we lived in Queens, so my parents put me in public school. And I went from 8 years of being in a Muslim environment and uniform and, respect for teachers and all. And now I'm in my first day in high school in Queens, New York, right? And I was confused whether I'm sitting in a classroom or in a train station. I couldn't tell the difference because you got people dressed however they want. Some people not very dressed at all. You got some dudes with his feet up on the desk. Some dudes chewing gum, which is that would have been the death penalty in Pakistan. I don't know. And the teacher's talking and people are talking to each other. They're not even listening. And for a moment, I was in shock. Like, what is this? What alt reality is this? But the reason I'm bringing up that time of my life, I realize these people can dress however they want. They can say whatever they want. They have freedom. I never saw freedom like that before in my life. But these people have so much freedom. They can even talk back to the teacher. They talk about their parents. They don't even say my dad or Baba. They say Frank. He's like, yeah, Samantha was giving me a hard time today. Who's Samantha? My mom. And you're alive? Right? They have freedom. But then after a couple of months, I realized something. There were the goth kids. There were the hip hop kids. There were the heavy metal kids. There were the surfboard kids. There were different groups, and each one of them dressed a certain way. I mean, if you were on the hip-hop side back in the day, you had extra baggy jeans. If you remember, some of you remember, you had to have the Nautica and the Tommy Hilfiger and the Timberland boots and all of that stuff. And you had to have T-shirts that were basically the size of thobes. They were they pretty covered your aura and then some, right? But they had a certain kind of uniform. And I was like, I thought they're free. Why are they dressing the same? Why are they talking the same? And you realize something. And by the way, if you don't fit in one of those groups, you're going to get bullied. If you just want to dress normal and go, yo, what's up with you? So now if you don't want to get beat up, or you don't want to get humiliated, you better put a hat on, you better put some extra baggy jeans on, you better do this, you better do, you better conform, you better put one of the uniforms on. In fact, you even had to walk a certain way to fit into a certain group. Each one of them had a different walk. You had to strut a certain way. What I'm trying to tell you is, there's the illusion, there's the false image of freedom. There is no open chest. There is no, I can just be myself. I can breathe. No, I have to surrender to this group or this group or this group. But this isn't just about a high school in America in the 90s. This is about every society in the world and every age group in the world. There are people here that have daughters that are looking to get their daughters married. And their cousin already, those girls' cousins already got married. And they got married in some wedding hall here somewhere. And it was a nice wedding and all of that. And now they're about to get their daughter married, and they have to keep up. They have to take a riba loan. They have to, get very overpriced, expensive catering. They have to invite at least 300 guests because their cousin invited 270. We got to beat the score. So we got to invite at least 300 guests. And you're going to put on all this difficulty on yourself. And you're going to give up Allah's guidance in the process. You disobey Allah in the process. Why? Because there's something else you're surrendering to. You're surrendering to a social standard. You're surrendering to the need to demonstrate that you got money too. Or you gave a big party to your daughter's wedding too. Or you did, and we're doing this. The elders do this in their own way. The high schoolers do this in their own way. Kids do this in their own way. Everybody is breathing heavy, climbing up into the sky, trying to conform to something else. And this is actually the height of misguidance.